There is no doubt that the Founding Fathers would be stunned by the growth in size and power of the federal government compared to their original intent. There's also little doubt that, given a 5-minute overview of American history for the past 200 years, that they would understand and approve of the results. The Founding Fathers were revolutionaries, as we all know. They didn't like the political system they grew up in, and they got rid of it. But they also were experimenters who were not afraid to try something new, and if it didn't work, get rid of that too, and go on to something else. The Constitution that they wrote in 1787 was actually an enormous expansion of central government, taking power away from the 13 states, investing it in an untested federal structure. And the ink was hardly dry on that document before they began making major refinements, adding 10 amendments we now call the Bill of Rights that specifically addressed shortcomings in the original effort. Shortly after that, Chief Justice John Marshall, the earliest activist judge, created a whole new power for the courts when he declared that they could rule a law passed by Congress as unconstitutional, something that was never envisioned by the Founding Fathers. Unlike the powers granted by the Constitution or added through amendments, this role has never been formally enacted, but it is now accepted as legitimate for the courts. The Civil War brought further change to the balance of federal versus state power, explicitly refuting the concept that the states were sovereign entities that could reject federal control or withdraw from the Union. Immediately following the war, 3 amendments were added that substantially altered the federal-state relationship forever. The 13th, which no longer allowed the states to define people as property. The 14th, which among other provisions requires states to follow due process and equal protection in their legal proceedings. And the 15th, which took power away from the states to determine who could vote. Early in the 20th century, the progressive movement brought about 2 more substantial changes. The first allowed the federal government to raise money directly from individuals through income taxes, giving Washington stable funding for expanded responsibilities. The second further diminished the role of the state governments by removing the election of senators from state legislatures and giving it directly to the people. Finally, the Great Depression and World War II sparked a further enhancement of federal power to protect us both against internal economic collapse and foreign military threats. The world has changed dramatically since the late 1700s in ways that the Founding Fathers could never have imagined, and our government has changed along with it. There's no provision in the Constitution for an air traffic control system, for example, but we need one. It's run by the federal government, and it's not going away. What has stayed the same throughout our history is the willingness to experiment, to invent new government structures when the old ones are failing, to creatively adapt to changing conditions. And now, the main task at hand is enhancing society by creating a healthcare system that actually works, or addressing the widening gap between rich and poor. Some politicians today, especially in the Republican Tea Party, decry institutions like the Federal Reserve and programs like Social Security as unconstitutional. I say to them, get over it. We live in the 21st century, not the 18th, and we're not going back. If you want to wear a tri-cornered hat and buckled shoes, get a job in Williamsburg. This has been a Stream of Conscience commentary. I'm John Hartwell. Thanks for watching.